Okay, well, it's morning here and afternoon there, Aristo. And yeah, I don't know where it's going to go either. We only talked briefly, but I'm just going to let you have the reins and take it where you want it to go.
Okay. You told me well, first I'd like to say good morning to you too, and good afternoon to me. And we have an image today, so that's good. Of course, it seems like people are upset, which is nothing new. Gauging by your own expression on your Facebook page, the reactions, again, it's not really anything new, but I detect a subtle difference in the atmosphere. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me thrice. I must be a real asshole. So what's up? We really start the third time and the fourth and the fifth. We really start wondering what the hell is up. So, and that's a good thing because slaves don't wonder. Slaves don't question. Brainwashed people take everything for granted. That's the whole thing about what they call the welfare society, the nanny state, and all of these.
Don't challenge God either.
Exactly. I mean, if I was God, I'd say, bravo, you're supposed to challenge. That's why the connection is faulty. If there's anything meaningful, it's in the fact that if the connection was free and God would, out of love, would have to go, okay, you're a child, I can't deny you your cries and everything. But what do people do? Shh, shh, you're breaking up, I can't hear you, oops, and then they go do their own thing. So if our connection with God is cut off, what do we have to do? We got to rely on our own resources. That's what we got to do. This is something that the so-called establishment is constantly trying to keep us from doing. Consider this, all of the New Agers, okay, I'm not saying all of them are the label, but people into alternative spirituality in an atmosphere where you are ridiculed for alternative spirituality. Not now, but when they started like 20 years ago, whatever. And even now, it is ridiculed, especially if you're a scientist or if you're in some profession, you don't go around, if you're somebody who's off in the fringe and off the grid, fine. But in any case, it takes guts to get into alternative spirituality in a certain sense. On the other hand, the stress might be so great that you end up copping out by using your own alternative spirituality as a means to do so. I believe many have done so. So the thing is, at this point, consider all these people with inner resources, free thinking, creativity, enough at least to engage in some form of alternative spirituality, many of them from established religions that said, okay, I'm going to research my own thing, I'm going to find my own meaning, I'm going to practice my own practices, whatever. And now these people have the capacity to find solutions. If anybody has the capacity, I mean, it's not think tankers, it's not people who are geniuses in our society because they're all taken by the establishment. They're all offered jobs and they have to think a certain way. They have to bow down to certain things. It's not politicians because they're corralled too. It's not the wealthy because their accounts are all regulated and there is another circle of wealthy people that keep tabs on them. So who is it? Well, it's in here where the chips haven't been implanted yet. It's in here with the little, genetically modified heart whatevers where we are still free. And it's in our own embodiment. So how many years have these alternative spirituality people wasted on listening to somebody's promises? Think about it. Think about the time when somebody woke up, quote unquote, and started communicating with other people who were waking up. Me, I started really getting on the internet in 2005 and started communicating with people. Give me like 3 or 4 years until I get my bearings and research and whatever. Okay, it's 2008. The crisis happens in the United States, Obama comes in, blah, blah, blah. And then the IMF starts really amping up its thing in Europe. So at least for the West, 2008 is a kind of milestone year where the signs and the portents have shown that we got to get our act together in order to do something, right? I mean, that's the year they actually did something in Iceland, for example. Kicked out the bankers, blah, blah, blah. Even though now I see a post.
Yeah, I saw you comment on that.
Yeah, it's like, okay, now the cops in Iceland have guns and are threatening everybody. What's up with that? So, there's 4, 5, 6 years. Over these 6 years, I have been noticing an increase in New Age promises, an increase in political promises, an increase in this promise, in that promise. So why? Well, so people can fall asleep. These woken up people have all fallen asleep at the wheel. And that's why, you know, they're angry at this, at that, at life, at whatever. I'd be angry too, and I am angry too. I fall asleep, I get tired, I don't want to face things, I take days off, time off, but it still hits me. The chemtrails are still there, the economic crap is still there. You know, they're going to kill us thing. The suffering of the world that I feel is still there, you know. But the point is that if I recognize my desire to just fall asleep a little bit, it's fine. If I fool myself into thinking I'm awake when I'm really asleep, that's when I'm screwed. And that happens when some snake oil salesman comes along and tells me the good to be true, too good to be true story, or the story of, don't worry, we'll fix it. You know, it's happening. Don't worry. Obama's the savior. The ETs are coming. God is coming. Christ is coming. Whatever. A real God is probably knows what's good for you and says, look, man, you know, the last thing you need is the higher power helping you, because the higher power is within you. When are you going to get that, and how are you going to figure that out? You have everything you need to figure it out. Otherwise, it would have been told to you. Instead, you're still listening to outside voices. I'm talking about everybody, including myself. It's a temptation. I spend a lot of time.
Including me.
What are they saying? You know, what do they have to say today? What story are they, you know, what's on the soap opera channel? You know. So how many years have we wasted when we could have been finding solutions? How many years do we waste on pity parties? How many years do we waste on, oh, it sucks, it's fucked, it's this, it's that? How many years have you wasted? But here come the whiteheads. And we'll all celebrate pretty soon. What kind of celebration is a celebration that you haven't earned, where you really don't participate except in parroting whatever the promise maker says? So I'd like to ask people this, all of us, you know, if you really want to discern, then think about this. What would you say in order to con somebody in any given situation? Put yourself in the mind of a con artist. It's not hard to do. We all have that kind of playfulness about us. We all have the trickster in us. Find your trickster. It's not like you're, I am not that kind of person. No, we all play. We all role play occasionally. We all, you know, like it. Acting is an art. You know, it's not manipulative hypocrisy. It can be loving sometimes. The whole thing is that be playful and put yourself in the mindset of a con artist. You can actually be very good at it. It's common sense. You get to read people that way too. If I wanted to fool this guy, see, there are instincts, survival instincts, that a big, brawny monster person comes along and tries to, you know, control you. So you're just a little scrawny guy, or a girl. And what are you going to do? You're going to use your resources. You're going to use your head. You're going to deceive the person because their intent is to kill you. If you're just being honest with them in a direct, forthright way, and they want to kill you, then you just got to sit. You know, you're going to be playing on their terms. So you're going to establish a situation that takes advantage of their weaknesses. And the fact is, because they shouldn't be challenging you in the first place. They do not want to communicate with you. I'm talking about a survival mechanism here. I'm not talking about how we should live our lives. This is nature. Nature gives us the ability to read people and read things. This is our human brain here. Any neurolinguistic programmer will tell you this. We're hardwired to be actors, among other things. However, if we do it chronically, we go crazy. Look at all the actors, how their psyches are. They're not very, you know, mentally healthy people overall. Artists, depressed, this and that, multiple personalities, you know, psychopathy is constant acting. There's no such, the psychopath doesn't even have a real personality. It's just the death wish. So I'm saying, be playful. Put yourself in the mind of a con artist. I mean, somebody's coming to your door. They're trying to sell you, you know, Alaska or the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever. And so if you don't want to be fooled, I mean, if you're going to think like a person who is an idealist and a well-meaning person, you're going to be fooled because that's how they're going to treat you. You know, they're going to treat you like somebody who's well-meaning, trusting, and that's how they fool you. They're not going to, but if they understand that you're suspicious, they're going to shift gears and treat you differently. So it's not like you have to fall into a suspicious mode. You're not doing that. See, what you're doing is what they're trying to do. You're gauging them. They're gauging you, you're gauging them. So who can now gauge the other? That's the zone. But that's in a direct situation. In a situation where somebody's doing a propaganda thing, you have an advantage because they cannot think on their feet. They have to go to the think tank, they have to set up a strategy, they have to organize, do meetings, say this is what we're going to do, this is the program, this is whatever. That all takes time. They can't think on their feet. They have a certain scenario. That's why we see the psychopaths, all the alternative media, at least they tell us, they're following the same script. Anything. They want to take over a country, they want to take over a person. It's a big script, there's a lot of things involved, but it's the same script. If you know the script, you know them. Then they might try to modify the script if they get desperate. The point is, you start from this. Use, I don't know if I should, it's not really empathy, but it is what neurolinguistic programmers call mirroring, but this mirroring doesn't express the other person's body language back to them. Instead, it assesses and you mirror what you see within and you assess it and you say, what would I do if I was them? What would I do if I wanted to con myself? And you can do this because you know your own weaknesses, hopefully. Knowing my weaknesses and knowing that I'm just a normal person who has body language and who's been, you know, my phones have been tapped, so they know my likes and dislikes, they know what I buy. I'm part of a statistic, I'm fairly normal, I live in a society, so I've been normalized along with everybody else, put into an equation, spit out, and, you know, there's a menu that's me with a serial number and a corpse name and whatever you want to call it. And he says, this is the buttons of this person. They've mapped out my buttons, okay? And they haven't really, but since if I was a real spiritual person, I'd be deconditioned. You know, who knows what spirituality really means anyways. But if I was so-called self-aware and self-realized, I wouldn't have buttons I didn't know about, or I wouldn't even have buttons. But being human and being in progress, so to speak, I have buttons. I know they can be pushed, but I still choose my reaction as far as what that pushing will do to me. So I basically need to read myself first and say, okay, here I am. I mean, you really get to know yourself if you put yourself in the position of, what if I was wanting to con myself? We do that all the time, too. I mean, denial is that. We con ourselves. We play the role of a propagandist on ourselves in order to avoid what we don't want to face. We are really good at fooling ourselves. So anybody thinks, oh, I could never be a con artist. Hey, man, you know, we're all really good at fooling ourselves. So that argument's out the window. You can be a con artist. The whole thing is, it's all a tool. All human expression that can be loving or unloving is a form of whether you infuse that form with love and meaning or whether you don't. See, experience is meaningful, right? See, this is the mindset again. We want something else to define what our reality is. We create our own reality, we don't create our own reality. For me, that's not even an issue. I'll set that aside. I don't care. What I care about is who defines if reality is meaningful or not. I do, you know. There is no predetermined. I wouldn't be free if it was predetermined if reality was meaningful or not. Let's put it that way. If God was guaranteed to help me, I wouldn't be a free person, you know, because I wouldn't be motivated. I am motivated to seek the path of least resistance because, excuse me, I am physically incarnate in a physical world with restrictions and I have to keep myself alive. So my body says, look, man, until you really become self-realized and can really chart your course and defy the givens, you know, you need to be taken care of. So the mother matter is who takes care of us, not the father. Father takes care of us after we stood up and are able to earn our living. Look at families. You know, look at the traditional roles. The father isn't really the one who's intimate with the little kid. The little kid looks to his mother, doesn't he? And she. You know, the mother is the one that nurtures, and when you cry for help like a weak little baby, it's the mother that takes care of you, not the father. So somebody comes in and beats your mother up, and your father's off with his mistress or at work or whatever, and yeah, you're going to be screwed, but the mother does the best she can. Any real mother does the best she can. So instead of constantly looking to this father who's away for whatever reason, or who basically is just waiting for us to grow up, because usually when a son or a daughter grows up, then the father comes in as an advisor, and let's do things together, let's play together, let's do whatever, you know. We're talking, I'm not saying that this is a reality. I'm saying that our reality reflects a deeper reality. It may reflect it superficially, but those of us, you know, who are in, you know, grow up in a certain family background, I'm not talking about the new whatever, but, you know, people who are alternatively spiritual of a certain age, whatever, who are aware of a certain traditional family background, know that the mother is nurturing to an infant and basically has more motivation to hold and cuddle that infant and protect it. The father does too, but he's more indirectly involved. The father supports the mother and the infant. You know, in these cases, we're talking again about an archetype. So and since we tend to project these things onto God, onto our whole viewpoint of the divine, then we may as well take advantage of how we view things. Because when you have that connection, you're asking God for help and whatever, that connection is biased and conditioned by your own archetypal structure, okay? So you use your own viewpoint that you may not even be completely aware of to make that connection. So it helps to know, it helps to be inspired by that instead of being despired, instead of being disappointed. So you say, look, okay, daddy's not treating me like, you know, he's not a modern daddy. He's an old guy and he's got a beard and whatever. But he's an old guy and he's conservative, and so he's off winning his bread and doing whatever he's doing. But he is giving me an allowance, and he is paying for my education, and he is doing things behind the scenes that I may not appreciate, and I may not even know because I'm not old enough to know. But mommy's there. Mommy is matter. Mommy is the physical world. Don't bitch at your mommy. You know, don't accuse your mommy. You know, I'm saying this to everybody who's into spirituality, especially because whatever problems your mother, matter, the goddess, whatever has, she loves you. So forget about God at this point. You know, he's doing his own thing for a reason, and he's helping us, but he has a role to play. We're talking he now. We're talking the yang. We're using that kind of symbolism because people take that unconsciously for granted. So look at matter. Matter has given us, through our evolution, through our biology, certain perks, certain ways to nurture ourselves because we're not babies anymore. We don't need hardwired instincts that keep us in place in a perfectly balanced ecosystem that still has its flaws. Animals suffer. You look at chimpanzee and bonobono monkey and basically our closest cousins on the evolutionary scale, as it were, and they also have little communities. See, the bonobos look like us too, very close, but they're matriarchal. Chimpanzees are patriarchal. You know, these are two separate African chimps.
Well, that's interesting. The bonobos are also the most sexual of all primates.
Exactly. However,
they don't have violence.
Yes, they do. That's a myth.
All right. Well, that's what
they are the most sexual. The other ones are more sexual. See, the difference is that chimpanzees are ruled by an alpha male. And the alpha male goes and screws with everybody, okay? And then the lower males, you know, some of them form gangs, but the alpha male can disrupt those gangs. Anyways, and they have raids to other primate areas, and they kill them, and they eat their meat. They're cannibals, some of them are peaceful, some of them are not. Just like human societies. You go in Africa, for example, some tribes are peaceful, some of them are not. The bonobos, on the other hand, they do not have a prime matriarch. They have an oligarchy. They have a council of women, shall we say, of female bonobos, that if a male transgresses and sexually harasses one of the females, then they will summon every other female, will gang up on the male and either beat the crap out of him or kill him. You know, and they will also do raids on other communities and beat them up and whatever. Usually they do this because food is lacking or whatever. The fact is that the new research that I've read shows that just because they're matriarchal doesn't mean they're less violent. And they are more sexual. They are just about as equally sexual, but when you have one alpha male that controls everybody else's sexuality, of course they're not going to be sexual. I mean, that's the whole thing with the male. The male wants, I'm the one who gets laid, y'all are going to not get laid, and that's me, you know, or else I'm going to kill you. Because I want my sperm spread, and I want my descendants out there, and that's it. The females, on the other hand, said, let's all get laid so we can have as much genetic diversity as possible. I want as many partners as possible, but I also want my babies to be taken care of. Since it's matriarchal, there's no dependency on the male taking care of them, so let's all get laid. You know, the chimps would all like to get laid. They're very sexual, you know, but the hierarchy of the male is demanding that only a minority has pleasure, has privilege, has whatever. The hierarchy of the female demands that it's still a minority, but it's not an exclusive minority per se, but it's still a minority. However, that society is more controlled in the name of security, in the name of keeping the status quo. The top females will not give over their power. They usually don't, you know. I don't actually know what the mechanism of power exchange is, but the violence is equivalent and the peace is equivalent. Usually societies of primates, and they don't really know why. Maybe it's the genetic, you know, they're genetic in groups, right? So maybe it's genetic. So some of them are extremely violent, some of them are extremely pacifistic, and you have a broad spectrum in between. The same thing with human beings. The difference is that human beings have undergone an incredible genetic diversity. Even in our society now, where you got nations and peoples and different colors, all of these came up from an incredible genetic diversity, from a common stock that spread out, interacted, migrated all over the place, wars and everything else, conquest. So basically, we've been mixed up and stirred up, segregated, mixed up again, segregated again. We are incredibly diverse, so we do not have the excuse that certain people are more peaceful than others, or even that a certain sex is more peaceful than another sex. Like I said, look at Hillary Clinton, look at the Queen of England. And those aren't just the examples. Indira Gandhi, for the sake of lowering the population of India, would grab people off the street and forcefully sterilize them. And this was an agenda from the, you know, from the end, whatever, the New World Order type agenda thing, Agenda 21, but back in the day, forced sterilization. So I'm saying do not fall for categories. This is common sense. However, do not be snowed into never organizing your reality in manageable parts. Categorizing has its own purpose. See, the thing is, you give the meaning to what you do. So if you are honest with yourself, then categorizing is useful. Evaluating, which is evaluating, not judging. If people evaluate, somebody comes, oh, you're judging me. No, I'm evaluating. You're making an impression on me. I'm going to, you know, assess that impression. It's my way of discerning. I have to come to some conclusion. So don't sabotage my conclusion. Only somebody who wants to manipulate me or is in denial wants to sabotage my conclusion in that way instead of discussing it with me. You feel uncomfortable with something you say, then ignore me. That's something I say, then ignore me. Turn me away. I'm not out to deceive you. But that's what everybody who wants to deceive you will say. They will be your best friend. You know, that's the thing. If somebody wants to deceive you, they will be your best friend. But that doesn't mean you have to deny all friendship. That's our challenge in this world. It's damn complicated. It's damn confusing. But the question we ask ourselves is, am I up to it? My mother has given me gifts. Forget the father, people. You're oriented, oh, the women and the you know, femininity and the goddess. Yeah, but I still hear these, the father and the spirit and the blah, 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 and matter is an illusion. You're spitting on your mother's face, people.
Yes. I like that. Yeah. I mean, people don't realize that matter, the physical, is the feminine.
Exactly.
and I mean, these spiritual people that say we need the goddess, and they're denying the material world.
Well,
Doesn't make sense to me.
They confuse matter with form. Form is just the specific appearance of matter at any given time. Matter is really energy. Okay, so energy is the feminine. True, consciousness is God. Spirit is consciousness, right? But the feminine is energy precipitated as experience, which we perceive on many levels, one of which, the densest of which, is matter. And matter is the feminine because it's the body of the feminine. It's the essence of the feminine. And when it's fertilized with consciousness, it becomes spiritualized. So if I say, I've said this again, if I keep saying I'm spirit having a physical experience, then I'm my father's sperm having an experience dancing in the womb. You know, no, I'm a fertilized egg and a sperm together forming a complete being. So I cannot divorce my physical experience from my spiritual experience. Those of you who want to leave the earth and become spirits will be existentially schizophrenic. And that is why, remember you said higher entities are stupid? Why are they stupid? Because they're not materialized. And I don't mean exactly. It's not that they have to have physical solid bodies as we perceive them, but I mean they are not.
They can't relate to the physical world, so everything they say has no point of reference within physical experience.
Exactly. They relate to it relatively as an energy type of experience, okay? But we confuse the word energy with some kind of rarefied, insubstantial thing. However, matter, solid matter, is energy. So an energy can be materialized, but it doesn't stop being energy when it's materialized. Your table is energy. It is not something different. So again, our conceptualizing of it's like a color. The red is not sound. Red is not an ideal. Red is a color, just like blue, yellow, green, whatever. If we think red is something completely different, then we're messed up in our perception. And we end up making bad choices when we have messed up perception. That's why we're making bad choices. We're not, fucked up. We're not abandoned. We're not whatever. Our perception is being messed up. And that's has dire consequences. So we need to reclaim our perception, people. Forget about whether you create your reality or whether you don't create your reality or whether it's meaningful or meaningless. What do you desire? What is your own sense of being? What is your own sense of purpose? Take responsibility for your position as an entity. Do you want to just be spirit? Fine, separate. Schizophrenia is fun for many people. Existential schizophrenia. You don't want to be physical. Maybe you want to be an etheric being. See, it's all about balance. Matter completes our existence, but it is not evolved because it is still separate. It is based on separation in order to give us this great variety of contrast, and that separation has become chronic, just like when you become chronically a trickster, you go insane. If you're the fool in the king's court, you're wise when you realize that you're really, not crazy. But if you keep being the fool and they play with you and whatever, and you forget your true nature, then you will really become a fool. And that's what happened to matter, to us in matter. We have fragmented because matter is that part of existence which establishes a sense of difference, of differentiation, not separation as an alienation, but differentiation as one hop, skip, and a jump from actual separation. When you have separation, what's in between? What's in that separate thing? Well, it's not love, that's for sure. And it's not some neutral thing. It's negation. The only way a unity can experience difference is to say no to itself, okay? But if it says no to itself, it experiences a negation of love. That's unavoidable. It's the very thing. It's very hard to say no and be loving when that's your first experience ever. So we're talking about the so-called Father and Mother God being one, and then saying that one has to say no to itself in order to become a polarity pair, to be able to initiate creation. That no was never forgiven. That no was denied because it wasn't understood. We're talking about an evolving existence here, an evolving divinity. So once you condemn God to be perfect, and it's the worst insult you could possibly give and the worst blasphemy to God. Again, I'm a sacred cow kicker. You can bitch at me all you want after this video's done. All you people, criticize me if you like. But, you know, you're forcing God to be statically perfect is an insult to existence. It's an insult. You know, they told me, oh, you know, you're saying that, I don't know what I said last time, and people, a few people said, no, but God is perfect and blah, blah, blah. No, a perfection is a condemnation. It's it's imprisonment. You're statically freezing something in place. And, you know, essence in love is perfect as itself, but cannot exist in isolation. Can you imagine love in isolation with nothing to love? With nobody to give love, nobody to receive love? Of course it's going to create. It'll even negate itself for the purpose of creating a source of love and a receiver of love, you know, instead of just a presence of eternal, perfect love just sitting there, you know. What's that? I mean, that's meaningless, in my opinion, unless it's temporary. So you have a seed state that is that perfect love, and that seed state generates a manifest reality by beginning with the God and goddess polarities, the yin and the yang, and their interaction, and seeding itself with what eventually degenerates into psychopathy, and then dealing with it as part of the process. And it's not going to be easy. Anything existentially really hardcore meaningful, again, I'll bring it back to a sexual metaphor. People freak out about sex. Why? Because it's real. That's why. Because it's really, you know, you can't fool around with it. You can't just pretend it's just a flippant something, whatever, like people do. When they're really into an intimate relationship and interaction, down core, when it hits the core of their psyche and it isn't some superficial stimulus, it shakes you up. So I'm not really talking about sex, but I'm talking about physical love. And that's your mother's gift, okay? Your mother is a sexual being. Matter is a sexual situation because it involves polarities coming together. In spirit, there is really no polarization except a contrived programming type of polarization, except of saying, okay, you know, I will define this is this and that is that. And so if it tries to keep doing that without love, that's judgment. Mother doesn't judge you, father judges you, okay? Because consciousness is what creates categories. Matter differentiates by virtue of its vibratory dynamic, by virtue of some frequencies being different than other frequencies. It's a natural state. Father creates categories by defining everything. In any case, we go back to, you know, so I think all of this talk about religion and everything is all well and good, but it's, you know, we're spiritually, the mass of your audience is into alternative spirituality, you know. So it is a little bit preaching to the choir. And it is an easy topic because we all agree, you know. But you can't argue on what other people are doing if you really have no means to change their minds or change their attitudes. Now, I'm saying better late than never. So even if you've been fooled all this time, fooled me once, twice, thrice, 4 times, whatever, there are ways to slowly turn the tables, because remember what you said in the last video. You said that you're powerless. Not powerless. Well, you don't control your reality. You said that you're not in control. Well, if you're not in control, nobody's in control. That means the psychopaths are not in control. You know, you look at it the other way. If you're going to say this reality is not about who's in control, then those idiots who are claiming to be in control are the most delusional of them all. Now, how can we use that to our advantage? Well, when the snake oil salesman comes around and they're a control freak, that puts them at a disadvantage that you can use. You can understand that. You can also understand if that person wanted to fool me, what would they say if a control freak wanted to fool me? And I'm not telling you what it is. This isn't a seminar. I'm saying think for yourself here, because this is common sense, you know. However, we've been snowed into...
Common sense is pretty uncommon, though, sometimes.
It is, because we're addicted to the nipple of, you know, the false robot nipple instead of our mother's nourishment. Instead of opening up to our true nature, to our sensual nature, to our sensate intuition, our felt sense. Feeling is feminine, right? So matter and feeling are interconnected. Matter is not a dead solid object. Matter is mobile and it interacts with us. The illusion, if you want to call it an illusion, then when I put my hand on the tabletop, the separation between my palm and the table, that's the illusion. I have a sense of the tabletop, that's my connection to the tabletop. And by proxy, the atoms of the tabletop have a sense of me. If I put my hand down, it creates a sound. That's them responding to me. Oh, but that's mechanical. Our perception, yeah, in our perception it's mechanical, but everything has a spirit, including atoms. And I don't mean a gang spirit. I mean everything has a sentient feminine spirit as well as a consciousness that's very deeply embedded in matter. It's not visible to us. However, the sentient feminine sense, you can feel a tree, right? You don't go out and talk to it. You don't have, like you do angels. Trees don't channel to people, okay? Animals don't channel to people. A spirit of an animal species might channel, a totem or whatever might channel, or the tree spirits, but that's separate. The actual materialized tree doesn't channel. However, put your palm on the tree, and if you're sensitive, you can feel it. You can feel the life force. You can even feel love coming from a tree if you're open to it. You can feel love coming from the air, from a cloud, from the earth, if you're open to it. So all of you spiritual, and me included and everybody, let's remind ourselves, you know, we're right here. God is right under our feet. God is around us. It's called Goddess. You keep talking about it. Exactly. Turn your prayers around and know that it's a whole different way to pray. The nurturing of staying on the key, because what are the psychopaths trying to do? They're trying to separate us from our mother, who is also our lover, archetypal, male or female. They're trying to separate us from the world, from the true world. They're calling it an illusion. They're creating scenarios that are lies to separate us from ourselves and the world. They're manipulating our consciousness to hate our planet. We can love our planet, but we don't love what it represents, matter. The world is like this. No, the world isn't like this. Human consciousness is like this. Human consciousness is spirit. Spirit is the fucking one at fault. If you want to look for whoever's to blame, whatever principle is to blame, it's the Father in you. That's who's to blame. That's who's programmed. That's who's insane.
That's why I say God lies.
God lies, exactly. Well,
and lies in us as us.
Exactly, exactly. However, before people claim I'm a Satanist or whatever,
or me,
or you, or whatever, let me say that there is a myth of fallen spirit. Okay, so who is God? The God that lies is Lucifer. The God that lies is this whole archonic, satanic, whatever that we think is out there controlling us. No, it's in here controlling us. So when you pray, you are conditioned to be hacked to pray to Lucifer. That's the only one who's listening to your prayers and who's fooling you into lying to you. The real God, as the Gnostics say, and in this way I would agree somewhat, is out there trying to reach you. Okay, how? Through love, loving spirit. When you pray, do you feel loving spirit? Well, loving spirit doesn't speak in mental language because mental language is hijacked by the principle of the mind. And the principle of the mind is Lucifer, the one that brings the light, the middleman, the messenger, the archangel. You know, look at the archetypes. Spiritual people, even if they're not enlightened or realized, should be aware of archetypal interpretations of reality. They shouldn't get lost in drama. They should know better. They shouldn't, you know, take things literally. They shouldn't confuse metaphor with fact and whatever. You need to feel, you know, feel matter. Your mother will tell you who Lucifer is and who God is. That's who's going to tell you. Trust your mother, the mother in you, the mother who you are, the mother that matter is, because you are, this is not your body. This is your mother's heritage. Part of your identity, that's your mother's heritage. So my main message, practically speaking, is to put yourself in the position of somebody who wants to con you without becoming paranoid. Be loving in doing so. You can do it, you know. Do not be discouraged because, you know, you haven't used all of your resources yet. Forget about the channelers. How many years have we wasted listening to these people? Channeling, as one person said, is a psychic mental thing. You know, real spiritual people don't channel. The voice of God, like you said, God doesn't have a name. Even the mother doesn't have a name. You know, it comes out as us, the part of us that knows better, that feels better. But we don't need words and mind games. You know, prayers aren't answered in terms of fucking a discourse or a diatribe or a rhetoric. They're answered in terms of feeling. Your mother is the interpreter of God. God is not going to speak to you in your head. God is going to speak to you through your mother, which is the heart and the body, the deep soul, which is connected to your physicality, not just molecular physicality, but energetic physicality, etheric physicality, our perspective. See, spirituality has been so doctored that our perspective and interpretation of it works against us. If you want meaning in your life, organize your life, approach your life in a meaningful manner. Ask not what meaning life can give you, but what meaning you can give life, and then you will find life reflecting meaning back to you. That's my message for today. Sorry again for jumping all over the place. Who knows what title you're going to come up with? But
well, we'll see. Trust the mother? I don't know.
Listen to your mother.
Mama knows best.
Mama knows best. That's right.
Okay. Thanks, Aristo. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Namaste. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, Ron. Always a pleasure.
Okay.